The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my corner office overlooking downtown Chicago. When Dad's name flashed across my screen, I actually considered letting it go to voicemail. Our relationship had been strained for years, reduced to obligatory holiday texts and the occasional awkward lunch. But I answered anyway. "Emma, we need to talk about the wedding," he said, skipping any greeting. I set down my pen. "What about it? Carol and I have been discussing the guest list." He paused, and I could hear the hesitation in his voice, the kind that comes right before someone says something they know will hurt. "Her business associates are flying in from all over the country. Very important people in the marketing world. CEOs, creative directors, the kind of crowd that," he trailed off. "Well, you know Carol's company is at a critical growth stage. First impressions matter in her industry. She needs this wedding to reflect a certain image." I leaned back in my leather chair and stared out at the skyline. "Just say it. We think it would be best if you didn't attend. Carol wants to keep things classy, sophisticated. Her friends are all very successful, and you're still," he hesitated again. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my corner office overlooking downtown Chicago. When Dad's name flashed across my screen, I actually considered letting it go to voicemail. Our relationship had been strained for years, reduced to obligatory holiday texts and the occasional awkward lunch. But I answered anyway. "Emma, we need to talk about the wedding," he said, skipping any greeting. I set down my pen. "What about it? Carol and I have been discussing the guest list." He paused, and I could hear the hesitation in his voice, the kind that comes right before someone says something they know will hurt. "Her business associates are flying in from all over the country. Very important people in the marketing world. CEOs, creative directors, the kind of crowd that," he trailed off. "Well, you know Carol's company is at a critical growth stage. First impressions matter in her industry. She needs this wedding to reflect a certain image." I leaned back in my leather chair and stared out at the skyline. "Just say it. We think it would be best if you didn't attend. Carol wants to keep things classy, sophisticated. Her friends are all very successful, and you're still," he hesitated again. "Still what? You know what I mean, Emma. You're 32, you rent an apartment, you drive a 10-year-old Honda. You work some vague government job that you can never really explain. Carol's friends, her colleagues, they're going to wonder why my daughter isn't more accomplished." The words hung in the air like poison. I'd heard variations of this my entire adult life. After Mom died when I was 19, Dad remarried within 2 years, a woman named Patricia who made it abundantly clear I was a disappointment. That marriage lasted 5 bitter years. Now, at 61, he'd found Carol, 15 years younger, ambitious, image-obsessed, and apparently embarrassed by my existence. "You're uninviting me from your wedding because your fiancé thinks I'll make her look bad?" I asked flatly. "Don't be dramatic. We're just trying to maintain a certain standard. You understand how important this is for Carol's career. Her business is everything to her. This wedding is essentially a networking event. Having you there, with your situation, it would raise questions." "What situation? Emma, please. You're an adult. You have to understand that sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love. Carol needs this wedding to be perfect. Her company, Prestige Marketing Group, is on the verge of major expansion. She's worked incredibly hard to build her reputation. I'm asking you to support that." I thought about the weekly calls I'd taken from him over the past 3 years, the ones where he'd casually mentioned Carol's business struggles, the ones where he'd suggested, almost offhandedly, that I might know someone willing to invest. I remembered how his voice had brightened when I told him I'd found someone willing to provide capital. "So you want me to stay away from your wedding," I said quietly. "The wedding that's 3 weeks away. The wedding I already bought a dress for. I'll reimburse you for the dress. This is just how it has to be. Carol's friends are flying in from New York, Los Angeles, Miami. These are people who matter in her world. You have to understand." "I understand perfectly, Dad." "Good. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. You've always been the understanding one, not like your brother would have been." My brother. The golden child who died in a car accident at 24, leaving Dad to pour all his disappointed expectations onto me. The son who could do no wrong, even in death. "Is there anything else?" I asked. "No, that's it. We'll catch up after the honeymoon. Maybe we can do lunch or something. Dad, congratulations on the wedding." I hung up without waiting for his response. For a long moment, I sat in silence, staring at my phone. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up my encrypted email. My fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced precision. 2. Marcus.chin@silveroakcapital.com. Subject: Immediate action required, Prestige Marketing Group. Marcus. Effective immediately, withdraw all capital from Prestige Marketing Group. Dissolve the partnership, trigger the exit clauses, and ensure all funds are returned to our holding company within 48 hours. I want every dollar out. No grace period. No negotiations. Emma. I hit send and closed my laptop. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Emma, I just got your email, Marcus said. Are you sure about this? That's $2.7 million in active capital. Prestige Marketing was showing strong growth metrics. I'm sure. This will effectively collapse their expansion plans. They're leveraged pretty heavily against our backing. Without it, they'll have to. I know what it will do, Marcus. Execute the withdrawal. There was a pause. Marcus had been managing my investments for 8 years. He knew better than to question my decisions. Consider it done, he said finally. The paperwork will be filed within the hour. They'll receive notification by end of business day. Thank you, Marcus. I set my phone down and returned to my quarterly reports as if nothing had happened. The story of how I became wealthy enough to casually withdraw $2.7 million isn't particularly dramatic. There was no lottery win, no secret inheritance, no lucky crypto investment. It was simply a matter of being in the right place at the right time with the right skills. After Mom died, I threw myself into my studies, computer science and applied mathematics at MIT, paid for by scholarships and Mom's modest life insurance policy. Dad was too consumed with his new wife to pay much attention to my academic achievements. He certainly didn't notice when I graduated summa cum laude or when I was recruited by a specialized government contractor. The work was classified. Even now, I can't discuss specifics. But I can say this, I became very, very good at identifying patterns in complex data systems. And I can say that the government pays extremely well for certain types of expertise, especially when that expertise helps prevent rather large and very expensive problems. By 25, I was earning more than most senior executives. By 28, I'd saved enough to start making strategic investments through a network of holding companies and trusts. By 30, my portfolio was worth $47 million. Now, at 32, it's somewhere north of $180 million. I still rent my apartment because I like the building and see no reason to deal with property maintenance. I still drive my Honda because it's reliable and I have no desire to attract attention. I still work my government job because I find the work intellectually satisfying. It gives me purpose beyond simply accumulating wealth. My family knew none of this. To Dad, I was still Emma the disappointment. Emma who never quite measured up to Jason's memory. Emma who worked some boring government desk job and would probably never amount to much. I'd considered telling him the truth 1,000 times. But after Patricia, after watching him choose a new wife's comfort over his own daughter's feelings, I decided some things were better kept private. I wasn't hiding my success out of shame. I was hiding it as a test. Would Dad love me for who I was? Or would he only value me for what I had? With Carol, I got my answer. 3 years ago, when Dad started dating her, he'd been practically giddy. Carol was successful, attractive, ambitious, everything Patricia hadn't been. He introduced us at an uncomfortable dinner where Carol spent most of the evening name-dropping clients and discussing her company's growth trajectory. We're really at a pivotal moment, she'd said, swirling her wine. If we could just secure the right investor, someone willing to commit real capital, we could expand into 3 new markets within a year. She looked at me expectantly, as if I might suddenly produce a wealthy friend from my purse. That sounds exciting, I'd said blandly. Dad jumped in. Emma, you work in government contracting, right? Do you ever meet people with money? The kind who might be interested in investing? I took a sip of water. I might know someone. That someone, of course, was me. Through one of my holding companies, I structured a $2.7 million investment in Prestige Marketing Group. The terms were generous, low interest, flexible repayment, minimal oversight. Dad had hugged me for the first time in years when I told him I'd found an investor willing to back Carol's expansion. Carol had been effusive in her gratitude, though she never bothered to ask too many questions about where the money came from. The investment had been profitable. Carol was talented at what she did, even if she was insufferable as a person. Prestige Marketing grew substantially over the next 3 years, opening offices in 2 new cities and doubling their client roster. But business is business. And family is family. And sometimes, those two things can't coexist. The first domino fell at 4:47 p.m. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Emma, did you tell Carol's investor something? She just got a call and she's losing her mind. I didn't respond. At 5:15 p.m., another text. This isn't funny. Carol's business is in serious trouble. Her backer is pulling out. Do you know anything about this? I muted his conversation thread. At 6:30 p.m., my office phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered. Emma Anderson. A woman's voice, tight with barely controlled panic. This is Carol Westfield, your father's fiancée. We need to talk. Now. About what? Don't play games with me. My CFO just received notice that our primary investor is withdrawing $2.7 million in active capital. Effective immediately. We're scrambling to understand how this happened and who approved it. Your father seems to think you might know something. I leaned back in my chair, watching the sun set over the Chicago skyline. Why would I know anything about your business arrangements, Carol? Because you were the one who found the investor 3 years ago. You connected us. You have to know who they are. I knew someone who was interested in investing. That's all. That's all. Her voice rose sharply. That's all. Do you have any idea what you've done? This withdrawal will torpedo our expansion. We've already committed to new office leases, hired staff, signed client contracts based on having this capital available. Without it, we're going to. She stopped abruptly. I need you to contact this investor. Tell them there's been a mistake. Tell them we'll renegotiate terms if necessary. I don't think they're interested in negotiations. You don't think? Emma, this is my company. We're talking about my life's work. You need to fix this. I don't need to do anything, Carol. Silence stretched between us. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. This is about the wedding, isn't it? You're doing this because we uninvited you. That's an interesting theory. You petty, vindictive little. She stopped herself. Your father was right about you. He said you never accomplished anything, and now I see why. You tear other people down because you can't build anything yourself. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Is there anything else, Carol? You're going to regret this. When my lawyer finds out who this investor is, when we trace these funds, you're going to wish you'd never. I hung up. My phone immediately started ringing again. Dad. I let it go to voicemail. Then Carol. Voicemail. Dad again. Voicemail. Finally, I turned off my phone, packed up my briefcase, and went home. The voicemails piled up overnight. By morning, there were 17. I listened to them over coffee in my apartment, each one more desperate than the last. Emma, please call me back. Carol is beside herself. Whatever's happening with her investor, we need to figure this out. She's talking about postponing the wedding. By the third message, his voice was strained. Carol's lawyer says the investment was structured through something called Silver Oak Capital Management. That name means nothing to me. Emma, if you know these people, please help us. By the seventh message, the withdrawal notice is signed by someone named Marcus Chin. Do you know him? Emma, please. I'm begging you. This wedding is in 3 weeks. Carol's company is falling apart. The 15th message, timestamped 2:47 a.m. I know you're angry about the wedding invitation. I understand. But this is bigger than that. Carol's worked her entire adult life to build this company. You can't let it collapse because of a family disagreement. That's not who you are. I deleted all of them and went to work. The next 2 days blurred into increasingly frantic contact attempts. Dad showed up at my apartment building, but the doorman turned him away when I instructed him I wasn't receiving visitors. Carol tried my work email. I blocked her. My Aunt Michelle called to lecture me about family loyalty. I don't know what's going on between you and your father, she said, but Carol is collateral damage here. Her business doesn't deserve to be destroyed because of a family spat. I agree, I said calmly. Businesses shouldn't be destroyed because of family issues. People shouldn't be uninvited from weddings because they're considered an embarrassment, either. There was a pause. Wait, they uninvited you. Ask Dad about it. I hung up. By day 4, the story had spread through the family. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years were suddenly calling, demanding explanations. For years, none of them cared about my life, my accomplishments, or my feelings. Now, suddenly, I was important enough to warrant family-wide intervention. On day 5, everything changed. I was in a meeting with my government team when my personal phone buzzed. With a text from Marcus. Your father and Carol just showed up at the Silver Oak offices. Security has them in the lobby. They're demanding to meet with the principal investor in Prestige Marketing Group. What do you want me to do? I excused myself and called him. How did they find the office? The withdrawal notice had our corporate address. They hired a private investigator who tracked the LLC structure. They're threatening legal action if we don't meet with them. I checked my watch. 2:30 p.m. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't engage until I arrive. You're coming here. Time to end this, Marcus. Silver Oak Capital Management occupied the 42nd floor of a glass tower in Chicago's financial district. The offices were understated but elegant, dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. It was the kind of place that whispered money instead of shouting it. When I stepped off the elevator, I could hear Carol's voice echoing through the marble lobby. This is absurd. You can't just refuse to meet with us. We have a contractual relationship with your firm. We have rights. The security guard stood impassively behind the reception desk. Ma'am, as I've explained, no one from our investment team is available without an appointment. Then get us an appointment. Today, right now. Dad stood beside her, looking older and more tired than I'd ever seen him. His suit was rumpled, his tie slightly askew. He noticed me first. Emma, he blinked. What are you doing here? Carol spun around. Did you follow us? How did you? I work here, I said simply. The lobby went silent. You work here, Dad repeated slowly. At an investment firm. Not exactly. I turned to the security guard. Thank you, David. I'll take it from here. I walked to the secured door leading to the main offices and pressed my palm against the biometric scanner. The lock disengaged with a soft click. Emma, wait, Dad said. I don't understand. What is this place? Why are you? I held the door open. Would you like to come inside and talk? Or would you prefer to continue shouting in the lobby? They followed me down the hallway to the corner suite at the end. The nameplate beside the door read, Emma J. Anderson, Principal Partner. Carol saw it first. Her face went white. That can't be. I unlocked the door and gestured for them to enter. My office was larger than my apartment. One wall was entirely glass, offering an unobstructed view of the Chicago skyline and Lake Michigan beyond. The other walls displayed framed credentials, my MIT degrees, commendations from government agencies with portions redacted, and a Forbes 30 Under 30 feature from 2 years ago that Dad had apparently never seen. On my desk sat a single photograph, Mom, smiling, from the year before she died. Dad stood in the doorway, stunned. Emma, I don't understand. Sit down, Dad. You too, Carol. They sank into the chairs across from my desk. I remained standing by the window. 3 years ago, I began. Dad mentioned that Carol needed an investor for her expansion. I agreed to help, through this firm, through a structure of LLCs and holding companies. I personally invested $2.7 million in Prestige Marketing Group. Carol's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The terms were generous. Minimal interest. Flexible repayment. Almost no operational oversight. I wanted the business to succeed. I wanted you to be happy, Dad. You. He shook his head. But how? You're a government employee. You drive a Honda. You rent an apartment. Where would you get $2.7 million? I've been doing specialized consulting work since I was 23. My skills are valuable to certain agencies. Very valuable. Over the years, I invested wisely. This firm manages my portfolio. Current assets under management, approximately $180 million. My personal net worth is in the same range. The silence was absolute. Carol found her voice first. You're lying. This is some kind of scam. You're not worth $180 million. I opened a drawer and removed a leather portfolio. From it, I laid several documents on the desk, bank statements, investment summaries, property holdings. Yes, plural. I own 4 properties across 3 states that I rent out. Stock portfolios. Government contract summaries, redacted but showing payment amounts. Dad reached for the papers with shaking hands. His eyes scanned the numbers. This is real, he whispered. This is actually real. It's real, Dad. But why didn't you ever tell me? Because I wanted to know if you'd love me for who I was, not for what I had. I met his eyes. And I got my answer on Tuesday when you called to uninvite me from your wedding. He flinched as if I'd struck him. Emma, that wasn't, ID.